never know if you don't go. You'll never shine if you don't glow. Hey now, you're an all-star. Get your game on, go play. Hey now, you're a rock star. Get the show on, get paid. Only shooting stars break the mold.
Welcome to another episode of the NRL Allstars podcast. Barnesy here, your host of the Allstars podcast, here for a team preview. We've got a couple just to finish off this week before the games start, and this one is for my Roosters. Got the jerseys in the background and everything if you're watching on YouTube. For this one, we have Mikey on board. Mikey, welcome back, mate.
Thanks, mate. Adding another one to the list. That's 4 team previews for me, and this is my first Roosters one with you, so I think it only makes sense you do the Panthers one with me, and now it's vice versa. But I guess the cool part about talking about the Roosters today is obviously we've got TLT, assuming on where they're going to sit, at least we can factor that into our decision-making, so I guess that's the positive to having them done a little bit late, but nonetheless, there's a lot of options at the Roosters.
There certainly is, and you mentioned TLT, so I will just mention to the listeners, I did put it up on social media, but yesterday I was on the Daily Telegraph official SC show for TLT, so I didn't have one for the All-Stars. There is today a rapid-fire one, just with some quick thoughts from the All-Stars podcast, but once a month I'll be in talking to Tommy Sangster, and on those weeks, I'll just do a quick fire one for the All-Stars podcast where I can, because we won't have one from here. Because I'll obviously be doing that on the Tuesday over at News Corp. So, for the Roosters, mate, we've got to have a look at the changes. I mean, obviously the big one, really, it's a pretty settled side now. I think that a lot of the youngsters last year that got minutes, it was really beneficial for them. And even guys that are sort of in their second or third year of first grade, like Steep and Wong and stuff, they're going to be better for it as well. But obviously the big addition is DCE coming in, Sandon Smith out. I didn't particularly want to sign DCE at the time because I liked what Savala was giving the Roosters. Having said that, you know, Savala is still developing his game. He's not going anywhere. I do think DCE will just be the 1 year. And I was pleasantly surprised that it was only $5,000 because there was, you know, paying him $1 million was being bandied about and stuff, and that didn't happen. So I actually think that it's worked out quite well. Obviously, he's got some fall off in his actual game that we've seen the last year or two, but in saying that, the leadership potential is there, and there is a lot of youngsters in the Roosters, which doesn't get talked about enough. You know, there's a lot of young guys still in that side that need some guidance. Teddy's obviously an Origin veteran, but now adding DC to the mix. Not a lot of changes for the roster. I quite like them this year, as you could probably tell. Do you think that I'm being, you know, because people will say, oh, Barnesy's being biased. I've got them, you know, if it's not a top 4 finish for the Roosters, I think it's a bit of a failure of a season, because I do think they've been building towards it with the youngsters last year and they've got the roster for it. So I've got them anywhere 1 to 4. I could see them dropping out at maybe 5 if they had some injuries hit and stuff, but I can't see them missing the 8 myself.
Man, you've had a massive range for every other team except for your own. But no, it's fair enough. I think at the same time,
I think I said the same for your Panthers, mate. Come on.
Panthers too, yeah. Okay, well, there we go. 2 out of how many?
And Storm, there you go.
Yeah, no, the Roosters, like, I agree with you. I'm hot on the Roosters every season too. Like, I'm not they're a team that normally, as a Panthers fan, they normally piss me off, but I love a lot of their players, and I've got them in a similar range to you. My range is probably more 2 to 6. I think with the changes in that, they would have to go from 0, or not 0, but they would have to. Could take him a little bit longer just to click with his new spines and all that kind of stuff. But the main thing is all these youngsters that are coming through to mix it in with the 2 great players that you signed, those youngsters are getting better. And we saw Naf White go to another level this year. And then you've got all these people like, you know, Blake Steep, Feketi, who couldn't even make the starting 8 at like 19. Like, there is so many options at the Roosters that I think you spell that in with all the experienced heads. And yeah, I agree with you. I think if they don't finish top 4, it'd be a major failure. But it's just all these times I've been hot on the Roosters to start with. They always disappoint me. But I guess the difference this year is, you know, Sam Walker's had another, you know, he's had a full preseason. In the trial, it looked great, him running the team around. And, you know, nonetheless, I think, you know, we're going to get into their draw, but, you know, they've got so many SuperCoach options to take a look at, and it's just more so when to try and fit them all in, because it looks like quite an attacking side.
Yeah, it does. And I guess to sort of touch on your point on them gelling, I do think that DCE, one of his qualities is that he's got the ability and the experience to be able to fit into a system pretty quickly. And he's done that at origin level and representative level, in even for Australia, where he's had to fit into roles and stuff and be in a spine that's had other guys kind of take control over him. And he's been able to do that really well. And I think that it was really positive that Trent Robinson's mentioned that he's got a group of halves there in DCE and Sam Walker that will both be able to just play footy and go either side and roam and just play their game. And I think that's really going to be helpful in them just hitting the ground running as well. You mentioned the experience and stuff. Like the other big thing as well is that why I'm pretty confident too is that normally the Roosters have these pretty bad injury runs. We don't have that right now, touch wood. So the Roosters are coming in fully healthy, fully fit. Guys like Sam Walker, you mentioned only played 8 games last year. And everyone's healthy, even Nat Butcher's back. So, I mean, aside from Radley being suspended for the first 5 games and obviously the unfortunate Robson injury, it's fairly straightforward. So, yeah, I'm quite happy with them in real life. I do like them in SuperCoach. Let's just go straight to the players because we've got quite a few to talk about. We do have TLT, so we do have an idea of where everyone's going to be playing and a little bit of an idea on rotations. But the first guy, the first thing to talk about before we talk about the guns is obviously going to be the draw as well. You mentioned it. I'll just let you take away with the draw. How do you find the Roosters draw to start the season?
It's a tough one because originally you look at their opening game against the Warriors and it's in New Zealand. You go, oh, that's a tough matchup. And you look at the odds too on like a lot of the betting agencies and they've got it a lot closer. But like, you're looking at the team that the Warriors have named, I don't see it. I don't think the Warriors will be bad, but I don't think they'll be. I know they're hard to beat down there. I think the Roosters could, if they start perfectly, they could put a bit of a score and they could score quite a bit of points. So I wouldn't say it's the easiest start, but I wouldn't say it's the toughest either. It's like I'm kind of in the middle with the first one, and then realistically on the other ones, I'm just
Souths, Penrith and Manly into a bye in round 5.
So yeah, like Souths, it just depends. Like we expect Souths to be much improved, but nonetheless, it doesn't matter what kind of form both those teams in. It's got like they've got that Parramatta Penrith kind of. No matter what they against each other, they score points and put on a show. So that could be a good matchup for SuperCoach. The Panthers one, historically, the Roosters don't play too well against the Panthers. I know last season they bucked that trend, but that's probably the tougher one, I think, of the opening ones. The Manly one, although it is at 4 points, I think that's still a pretty friendly matchup. But I think that round 5 is a bit of a kicker too, which might stop you from maybe going more than 2 of them. But then after the bye, they got Sharks, Knights, Dragons, Broncos. So in there, you've got the Knights, Dragons I really like. Their draw's pretty mixed. It goes tough team, 2 easy teams. Tough team to like 2 easier sides, and that's kind of how it looks the whole way through. But it's not really going to scare me off starting with some of those Roosters. I don't think that draw's going to scare me off at all. The Warriors, Bunnies, if they start hot, could be 2 decent matchups there.
Yeah, I actually, if they didn't have that round 5 bye, I would really like the draw. The round 5 bye takes a bit of shine off it, unfortunately. But like you, I am all over this Warriors matchup. It's a shame it's in New Zealand, but I've said it in the preseason, so I've got to back it up and be consistent. The Warriors and Manly, I think, are big drop-offs from what some people expect them to perform at this year. I don't expect either side to make the 8. I think that the injuries that the Warriors have for the first couple of months are extreme. That's really going to hurt them. And Manly, I just don't believe in at all, really. So those 2 matchups, I think the Roosters are going to put on points. And what's interesting with the bookies, a little bit of side talk about the betting. The best time to bet on rugby league is at the start because sometimes reputation comes into it a bit. And, the Warriors are like, the Warriors team is seen as a competitive side. And it takes a few weeks before the bookies kind of adjust their look on it sometimes for them to... Now, they might come out and perform and then that's not true, but I think they'll come out and not perform as well as what people expect. And I think the Roosters can put a lot of points on the Warriors this week. And I do think the same at Manly as well. The Souths game, as we all know, it could be 10 send-offs, so we don't know what's going to happen with that one. We don't have Jared anymore. Victor Radley will be out for it, so maybe cooler heads will prevail. We'll have to see. And the Penrith one is obviously a tough one. So, yeah, the bye takes off the shine a little bit, but I do think at like 3 out of 4 of those games, I could see the Roosters team scoring a lot of points in at least. And you sort of go after that and go, well, what's after the bye? And I actually love what's after the bye, except for the fact that they do have another bye in round 12, which is a real kicker. The byes for the Roosters for the first half of the season are super annoying. But when you look at it, the Sharkies away, that's tough, and it's in Perth as well. But then you've got Newcastle at Sydney at Allianz. Then you've got the Dragons. It's 2 good weeks. You've got 3 weeks of home games, although they're taking some of these away, starting with the Broncos, but at least they don't have to play that at Suncorp. And then the Titans and Cowboys is a bumper matchup. Like 4 out of 5 of those matchups before round 12 are absolutely gold. And one of the things is, someone like Teddy is performing and you decide later on you want him. We've talked about this before in this show. It becomes really hard because you're getting towards a round 12 bye as it is for guys that don't play Origin. And Teddy's obviously going to play Origin. So you're going to find yourself, do I get him in for 3 or 4 games? And things happen. And he can be really expensive where you've got to tear your team apart. So I think it is easier to start with a couple of these guys from the beginning if you like them based on the draw.
Yeah, 100%. Oh, you can't guarantee Teddy for Origin, but I guess if they've got a round 12 bye anyways, then you can't it's not like he would play that round anyway. So,
Yeah.
I don't think the draw's too bad. I think if you like the Roosters and you think they'll do well, which I think a lot of us super coaches think that, then pick the ones you like because a lot of some of these guys present some value and we're going to get into that. I currently have one, but I'm 50-50 on adding a second one. It's probably the biggest headache I currently have. But talking with you, I say might swing me one way or another. Let's see.
Oh, I think you can easily have 3 that you're starting. Pretty much the same as I said with South. Don't go more than 3.
But if you're spending 3, I think if you're then doing, say you got 3 South starters and say you're going to start all of them, then you have 3 Roosters and their starters. One of them's not a cheapie. That's then when it's a bit of a catch-22 because you're losing 3 plays in like back-to-back rounds. So that could affect your scoring, especially overall wise. So I think the buys aren't everything, but I think you've got to kind of manage them and just kind of enjoy that strategy while you can because next year we won't have to deal with the buys. For like a team on the bye each week, I should say.
Yeah, it's a very good point. Abe Tedesco, first going to talk about, obvious one. 69,000. He is super expensive, right at the top of the elite price points in SuperCoach for the year. But look, it's for very good reason. He is coming off an 89 average. The year before he was 94, so he did drop off 5 points per game. But there's actually, when you have a look at it, there's actually some, I guess, room for growth. 11 tries last year he scored. It was actually 14 the year before. So 11 is pretty average to even below what you could expect from Teddy when he's playing a full season. And he played a full 24 games. And that's probably one of the other big numbers for him. 4 seasons in a row now, 20-plus games, pretty durable. And his base power is always really solid. So you almost got 50, just under 50 base power. And when you look at it, 79% of his games are 60 plus, which is amazing. But 14 out of 22 games, he went 80 plus. And when you're paying that sort of money, one of the things that you're paying for is a captaincy option every week. And when he's going 80 plus 14 out of 22 games, those are all good, decent captain scores. So it's a tough one to leave him out, I think, because when you look at the ownership, you go, well, hang on, everyone is leaving him out. He's only 12% owned, and you factor in the captaincy as well. The numbers are just awesome. And then you look at the tons that he scored last year, mate. He's got the 150 plus in him each season. And last year, as far as the slow starts go, he averaged 91 points for the first third of the year. And that's because he had tons of 119, 101, 128, and 130 in his first 9 matches. And obviously a 189 for his high game, finishing off on a double of 131, 131 in the last 2 games. The numbers just say, why don't we have this guy in more teams to me?
Look, the ownership numbers is juicy, and Tedesco was a guy that actually sat in my lineup just after the start and all the way till the stat changes. When the stat changes came in, I changed my side around to pump up my forwards, be able to grab more gun centers, and he hasn't re-entered my side. I ended up going Drinkwater. Even still, Drinkwater was 70k less. I know now I'd probably be kicking myself, but I can't warrant the reasons for selecting him, which I know other guys did. So it's the main reason why he hasn't entered my side, but he's the kind of player that you're going to need at some point. in round 2, loves playing the Souths as well. 131, 101, and 135 in his last 3. So he'd be someone you'd have some sort of armband on for that. I guess also the thing too is a lot of people might be only able to afford one expensive fullback, and looking at it, you'd put him up against Reece Walsh. You see what Reece's Walsh draws goes to, like I think it's round 3 or round 4. You put them both up head to head. Walsh doesn't have a buy in those first 5 rounds. I think that's what also makes it hard to front up and spend 169K, especially with the plethora of options. And you definitely could do it. There's a lot of cheapies. There are strategies now where, I'm coming around to starting the 5 cheapie centre wings, because that will enable you to get a guy like Tedesco. And with a lot of these, we've got it so like this, I can't remember a season where we've had this many cheapies. The issue is with the amount of second row cheapies we have, there are so many more traps that TLT revealed. So it might be more beneficial to stack those cheaper ones there, and then you'll be able to fit a guy like Tedesco in. So I couldn't warrant anyone not starting it, but it's just whether or not you have the funds to do it. It sucks because after playing with my side yesterday, I would have had the funds to go Drinky to Tedesco, but that's a kicker with the Vegas round. I don't have that choice anymore. Yeah, great option, but I think that round 5 buy kind of hurts him a bit. So someone I'd like to watch in the first couple of weeks, but he could absolutely blow the Warriors and Bunnies away, and then we're going, shit, we need him.
Well, you look at the price point as well, and it's like people will bring that up, but then they'll happily spend pretty similar money on Herbie Farnworth. So I mean, like, if I'm choosing between Herbie and Teddy, I'm taking Teddy every day of the week. So I think that maybe, there's some team build stuff that could be looked at if you really want to get Teddy into your side.
Do you currently have him, Barnesy?
Yeah, I've had him since day dot.
Yeah.
And it's not just because I'm a Roosters fan. Like, he was the top player, like 89 points per game. The year before, he was 94 points per game. He does this every year. He's always in the top 2 or 3 players, generally. So the last 2 years, I just think he's been too consistent. And the Roosters look like they're going to score points. So, and he's still got that growth. Like, people, I think, also jumped off because of the new scoring system. But he's only hurt by a few points per game. And there can be more generosity given on tackle breaks as well, which we know helps Teddy. But say he loses like 5 points per game, he's just got to score an extra 2 tries, which is still below his 2024 try scoring. And he negates that completely anyway. So, I mean, I just don't see any numbers that say you should leave him out. And the kicker is the 12%. Like, 12% of teams, and if you're worried about the round 5 bye, Mikey, like, you could be super aggressive and go, you know what? I'm going to be super aggressive that first 2 months, and I'm going to take Teddy, and then I'm going to trade him out in round 5 and trade him to another gun. And then maybe in a week or 2, I'll get him back. And if you're happy to burn that trade and you're lucky enough not to have injuries in your side or fires to put out, you can do that, and it can work out really well.
Yeah, 100%. I guess maybe the only kicker is it's another season of Tedesco getting older. And then maybe on top of that too, you've got Cherry Evans there, Robson will come into there. How does that spine look? Does Sam Walker getting more involved? Is that going to affect Teddy? Like, it's just a big, like, I know what we saw in the trial, and I don't think he's still going to be an excellent option, but there are still a few more question marks. Like, there are a lot of mouths to feed there and a lot of guys that are capable at throwing that ball and setting up tries. And I think maybe there could be a case where Tedesco takes a little bit of a backseat and lets Sam Walker run it and trums him when he can, and he might lose a try assist here or there for that. So I'm not saying not to start with him. It's more so just the fact that being able to afford him and, depending on your build makeup, like right now, I've gone heavy forwards, wait and see with a lot of these question marks and jump on the guy that I need. Because in this case, if you didn't have Reece Walsh and Tedesco, which in my case I currently don't, I could look at which one I need more and jump on that one ASAP. More so, it's just hard. Like, obviously, we've got the Vegas round done, so it also prevents less movement. But you're right. If there was a way that I could get him in my flex and change my side, I definitely think he's a handy guy to have, because the more I look at that first 2 rounds, I think they suit Tedesco. It's just the DCE factor. Like, I think, like you said, DC will take a nice backseat in there, but there are going to be times where he steps up. It's just, you've got a lot of heavy heads there that are going to take control of the side. So it's going to be good for the Roosters, but
I think that his age is a really good point. Like, he will drop off eventually. It could be any time, and it could be this year. So that's a really valid one. I will say last year, the last 5 games he played with Sam Walker, he averaged 115 points. I will say that I think that's a little snapshot. And what was happening was he was actually scoring tries because the Roosters' playmaking was getting him in good positions. So, even if he's got his hands on the ball slightly less for playmaking, he seems to get the opportunity from try scoring. And DCE is good at doing that too, with setting things up. And I just don't think he can take a backseat just because of his work rate. Like and everyone says he's a hog and stuff, well, that's a good thing for SuperCoach, because he always has the ball in his hands. We could talk about Teddy for about an hour, but I don't want to because I want him to stay at 12% ownership, and I need to talk about other players, Mikey. So, Mark Nawaqanea-Tuaze, he was the second best averaging Rooster last year, which is quite surprising, obviously, but he is coming in off a 75-point average, and he's going to cost 735,000. Now, we've spoken about stacking the centre wing, how it can work out. He's a winger, not a centre, so he's not going to necessarily benefit from those, the try-assist changes that could come in. But can he just replicate it? Because, you look at it and go, look, that's really hard to replicate 75 points per game for a winger. But then you go, well, he's probably just going to keep scoring tries, so maybe he can.
Yeah, it's tough because we're absolutely spoiled for choice in the back line, especially when you're talking about premiums. And I guess a lot of us are flocking to the fact of the centres, and we saw it happen on the weekend with Stephen Crichton and Valentine Holmes. They got try assists that normally wouldn't. So, but at the same time, if we think the Roosters have a better side, they're going to be better. And now you chuck Cherry Evans on that right-hand side. There's no reason why he can't replicate that amount of tries. I think it's just from the start, a lot of people would prefer to, myself included, put my money into Herbie and Iro. And even you got a guy like Latrell that I'd prefer over just at a lot of a cheaper price point. So I think he'll be an option at some point. Maybe you hope that he, the first 2 weeks, doesn't score as much, can dip down K or so, and then bang, jump on. But he could come out of the gates and go double. And last year he scored a lot of his tries in bunches, so he could hold that value pretty fast. And I think compared to what you'd expect him to be, his ownership's not too bad either.
He finished on a 5-round average of 101, and that's because 3 out of his last 5 games, he went 101, 158, and 130. And you talk about those multiple try games. 2 of them were hat tricks, and 1 of them was a quaddie. So he relies on the tries a lot, but geez, he was able to score them in bunches. Second half of the season, he was like a 90+ guy.
Yeah, it's a good point. And 12% ownership, it's just whether or not the Roosters come out of the gates, fast. And look, we spoke about Tedesco. We're now speaking about Mark, and there's a lot of options we're going to speak out. There's a lot of guys to have, and most of them are going to take up a pretty big chunk of your cap. So he's going to be someone you're going to want to get into your side, because I definitely think if he's fit for the entire season, he'll be pushing for that top try scorer for sure.
Yeah, it's a great point. I have other guys ahead of Mark at the moment, so I certainly think Iro for slightly less is better.
If he ever dips, jump on him straight away. I think if he ever gets into the 650 season, I think, so you get to that point where you get that nice Titans-Cowboys matchup, bang, get on him. If he's had a dip in price, there's going to be a point where, if he hasn't had that run, he will. He's too good. He'll score. He could score 4 tries a game. That's the kind of player he is.
And I spoke about that run of all those tons that he had, but in between he went 32, 34, 47, 42 before he hit another ton. And he followed that ton up with a 35 before he went 81, 158, 130. So he's got the lower ones in him. So even to save almost 200K, Brian Tyre could work out better for your balance of your team. So I do think there's better options than Mark to start with, but I do think he's in for a good season, like you said. I think it's Crichton. A bit of a fall off. He's only 610,000 now. And that's because last season was certainly not one of his best ones. 62-point average. It's a big drop off from 78 points per game in 2024. Unlike Mark, I do really like Angus to start the year. He has a good price point. 62, aside from the 2023 season where he only played 11 games and was injured and off the bench, it's his lowest scoring at the Roosters. He's 75, 66, 78, and now 62 on averages when he was playing properly in an 80-minute role. So, to me, 610,000 presents great value. When you go through the numbers, he only had 4 tries last season and no tons. In 2024, he had 11 tries and it included 3 tons, including a 151-point high. and his tackle breaks and offloads dropped off slightly last year. So, look, you don't even have to go best case scenario with him, mate, in my opinion. You just go, look, if you can get halfway to that, like say he doesn't get 11 tries again, say he gets like 7 or 8, and say he gets his tackle breaks and offloads up 3 points per game, like you're already easily looking at a 70-plus player that you're paying 62-point average for to start round 1. And he's a guy that can score some tries to start the year as well. So I really like him. I think that last year was a down year for him. It's his last year in his Roosters jersey. 610,000 to bargain for me.
Yeah, he's currently my only Rooster at the moment. He's someone that, like, at one point I had Tino, and it was Tino versus him, and he's just someone I just have this feeling. And watching him in the trial, he hit that hole. Sam Walker's only getting better. I get a lot of people say, he's not going to be at the Roosters next year, but he loves the club. I think he'll want to go out with a bang. Like, why wouldn't he want to go out with a bang? That team would look at their roster and say, this roster can win a premiership. So he'd want to go out firing. And if Walker's going to get better, that short ball, like, there's games that he could score 2 tries. I think at 610 is a pretty big bargain. Like, you can stack up your second row with a guy like Crichton, Hopgood, and they're all, the price point that they're at, and, the capability of what they can get to, and you add in the extra stat system, and he'd be the kind of guy that will benefit off a couple extra, tackle busts that he normally wouldn't grab. And also you chuck in the fact that it looked like last week they were also a bit more lenient with the line breaks, where the NRL app likes to give line breaks a bit more than what the Fox one does. Like sometimes on the Fox one, if they broke 5 litres, they wouldn't get one, but on the NRL app they do. So he's someone that could benefit off that too. So I like his first round matchup. He's a good price. He's in there for me. I guess the issue to not having him is just the plethora of options. There's so many options, and you can't have them all. And if you wanted to maybe stack a guy like Tedesco, you might be able to have to miss out on someone like Crichton because you can't afford it. But yeah, I rate the purchase, and he's only at 15% ownership, which I love. It's just because there's so many options. You can get a guy that, like, realistically, I think on a season where there weren't this many options, he'd be like 25% owned. And if he goes bang the first 2 weeks, he'll get mass brought in.
Yeah, and this is a good thing that with so many options, there's so many different teams, and you get these 15% ownerships on Angus Crichton. And I think it's a great opportunity. I've got him over Yo at the moment, only because I normally prefer to gravitate towards going for the upside, going for the guy that can give me 100-plus score a couple times in the first month, potentially, whereas Yo is obviously going to have a bit of more of a solid floor. But one of the underrated things with Angus is even last year when his work rate was slightly down, his base still remained at 45 for an edge, and a 45 raw base is really good. And then you factor in his power, and he's a 55-plus guy, and he has been able to be like a 60-plus guy before, which he could get to. So when you factor in Yo's age as well, Angus's base power might actually get pretty close to Yo's floor anyway if he has another good season and not a drop-off like last year. So love Angus for the start of the year. Sammy Walker's the next one, 683,300. Interesting with Sammy Walker. He only played 8 games last year, so you have to take the numbers with a grain of salt a little bit. But he averaged 70 points per game, and it's what he's been building towards the last 4 years. 59 average in 2022, then a 60, then a 65, then a 70. He's been building towards this type of elite keeper at the halfback spot. But you know what? That 70 average, it's not even right, because he had a 4-point game where he only played 8 minutes last year. If you look at the other 7-minute games where he played 80 minutes, he was actually a 79-plus average, which is huge. So you could actually say, Mikey, that he's got already almost 10 points of value in him if he just replicates the form from last year. Was a small sample size though, so that's the argument against it. And the other thing against him is that he's got a 16 raw base, which is absolutely putrid. You will not get many worse raw base than what Sammy Walker has got. And even with his power stats, it's terrible. It's still in the 20s. But the saving grace is if the Roosters are scoring a lot of points, his goal kicking should get him up to about a 40 floor still, just because of the goal kicking. So can he replicate what he was doing last year? Is he worth paying for? Is he worth going for over a Hines or a Cleary?
Well, I mentioned before that the biggest debacle of the second Roosters player, and it's Sam Walker. At the moment, I've got him and Hines like level peg to keep switching and swapping and going, if I switch to Sam Walker, what can I do with that cash? It's right now. I've got Hines just at 51, but the more I think about it, if I wanted to get a guy like Tedesco, I would need to drop Hines down to someone like Sam Walker to get me closer. It's tough. I think if you're betting on Sam Walker, you want him to open against the Warriors this week pretty well. Same with the Bunnies, and he's gone up to 20% now, so he's getting very popular. And I think it's more so just the price as well compared to some of those other guns. And I think the trial reassured a lot of people. His ownership bumped up massively after that trial because I guess the kicker with him was, what's the side going to look like with Cherry Evans? Is Cherry Evans going to take a lot more ball off him? Hugo Savala was very good for Sam Walker, I thought, last year when he went on that run. But the trial kind of showed that DCE was happy to take the back step. And I think that's kind of what DCE will do coming in. Like, pull the strings when he needs to and let Sam Walker make those moments. And Sam Walker's got the talent to make those moments. He's just got to stay on the field. And that's a worrying thing too. He has been pretty fragile in the past.
He has. He's a small body.
But yeah, I'm still very, very torn. And I know there'd be a lot of players out there torn with which halfback they want to choose. I think it'd be a very common headache to have. I like him. If the Roosters start hot, there is no way that he's not scoring well. So if you had your VC still in play, great VC option on the Friday, especially if you wanted to captain someone like Payne Haas. It's a very good VC to see you all on the Friday. So, I reckon there's a good chance I could flip to Sam Walker. I guess the question, Barnesy, is, do you have him in your side? You've already alluded to having two Roosters. Do you have a third?
I do have a third, but it's not Sam Walker. I've had him in my side this week even. But and I will say, there's Cleary and Hines. Walker actually outscored Hines last year, 79 plus points per game to Hines' 77. Yeah, so, I think that he's as viable option as what a Hines is, and even as what a Cleary is when you consider Cleary's draw and how much more money he is. You can't have them all. And I've elected to have Hines because I've got Crichton and Tedesco. My plan with Sam Walker, though, actually, is I may get him in round 7 when Hines is on the bye. I think that's a potential swap. Or even if Ethan Sanders has made enough money and you can get up to Sam Walker, that might work out. But the problem is he could be a lot more expensive by then. So, yeah, I think he's a great option. If teams want to go with him as your halfback one, I wouldn't talk anyone out of it. DCE is obviously the other half that's come in. And I'm just going to make this a real quick chat. I think the DCE can have a really good impact on the Roosters. He has been very consistent. It is his lowest score that he's coming off in his modern SuperCoach career, basically. So, the last 6 odd years, 63 last season is his lowest. So when you look at that, when you look at him coming into a new side and being the veteran presence and taking a back seat, I can't see at 618,000 any way that he's an option, but he is now 5'8", and I guess that's the only wrinkle that we should mention, Mikey. As a 5'8" option, if you sort of want a piece of the Roosters draw and you're not sold on these other guys, or you like other guys better, like a Hines over a Walker and a Walsh over a Teddy and these sort of things, DCE, okay, could he do a decent enough job at a 6 position that he's pretty weak on options?
I think that's the main thing with DCE. I had him in one of my drafts, when I first picked the team with the team picker. It's just the fact he's available at 5'8". I guess everything I said that I liked about Sam Walker, that you'd say that, well, then there'd be some kind of negative on DCE, and that's true. And he's someone that I wouldn't pick with any great confidence without having a little look first. I think if the Roosters score mass points in certain games, there are going to be games where he goes massive. There's no way that he doesn't. You could see the odd game where, he scores a try, sets up a couple. But we said the age thing with Teddy, and the age thing would certainly get into DCE. I see him kind of, playing that same role that Cooper Cronk did, and when he come for those last couple of seasons for the Roosters. So 618, I'd prefer just to spend 200 less and take a stab on Cody Walker than spend that extra 200k for DCE. But, to say that he mightn't be an option later, he definitely could be. The more I've looked into it from obviously my initial draft, I'm just not willing to start with him. As we said, there's only so many Roosters you can start with. And I think the amount of better options from the Roosters to start with also would push him out.
100% agree with you. Let's move on to the pod in this Roosters team. I don't think anyone's going to guess who it is. Mikey, do you want to have a stab?
Look, I haven't looked at the team sheet. I'm going to guess Naff White.
Oh, how did you stuff this one up? Daniel Tupou, mate. Come on.
Damn, your favourite player ever. I didn't even look at the run sheet. I didn't want to ruin it.
Mate, he's always 2-3% owned. It's crazy. The last 2 seasons, last year he went 65 points per game. People will think that's a career high. The year before in 2024 he was 69. Like, he has gone a 68 almost average over the last 2 seasons. And he's in that Roosters side that is now, I think, going to have even more options with DCE there as well. And I've just got to say, like, his work rate actually went down last year a bit. 40 base power for him. It's solid. It's okay, 40 base power. But he's been better than that. Like, he's been 45 plus base power. He could easily get back to that. And then you look at it and go, well, look, he had 19 tries last year. You know what? Tebow can eat 19 tries for breakfast. He can do that pretty easily once again. And the other thing I like about it, and this is something I haven't seen anyone else talk about, one of the changes with the try assist stats, right, and the criteria that they look at under the new stats provider, Tupou can actually benefit quite a bit from that, because if you watch him play, a lot of the time when they kick to him, he's actually tapping it back in or like hitting it to somebody else to score. And a lot of the time they only gave him a try contribution for that. He doesn't get the assist. He's going to get the full assist for that now when he does it. And it's at least sort of 4 or 5 times a year that he's doing that. So I actually see upside when you look at his base power and you look at the try assist stuff when they're going to kick to him. I actually see upside in him. So, you know, it might sound crazy at 636,000, but he's actually cheaper than a lot of the other elites. Like, if you couldn't get up to an Iro, and you couldn't get up to a Herbie for sure, and Valentine Holmes was expensive as well, but he's now unavailable. At that price point of the early 600s, you know, I think Tupou's right there as a real pod option, and he could easily score an 85 average across the first month before that bye if they target him with those kicks. I do like it. I don't have him. I just can't because of the bye, and there is other options that I paid up for, like an Euro, but he's always a forgotten man. He has scored 68 points per game across the last 2 seasons.
Look, I'm not in the number one Daniel Tupou fan club like you, but he's my favourite Roosters player, and he seems to find his way into my SuperCoach side every year. I've never ever started with him, but it's more so just trying to find the right thing. But like, if I was going to take a Roosters winger, I'd probably take Tupou over Nwanga Tawazi, just 100k cheaper. And last year we saw when Sam Walker went on that run, Tupou was the biggest beneficiary of it. That left-hand side was humming. And if we all, like all those positives you said about Angus Crichton, they're going to affect everyone on that left too. Like, I think that left will be their better. Like, they've got strike power on both edges. I get that. But I do think that left side edge will be, you know, used to the shit house. So, yeah, I rate it. It'd be a very, very sneaky pod play. It's hard because then you go, okay, well, then I've got Latrell Mitchell as well, goal kicking. Like, it's just like when you weigh him up with some other players, like, you know, makes it a bit harder, but he's definitely the kind of guy, like you said, when the draw gets to that round 7 Knights game, it'll be someone I'll be looking at, because 3% ownership is juicy, and, you know, he could definitely go on a little bit of a run from the start. So I don't have him as well, but it is a good shout. If you wanted to go a super pod with the upside, you know, he's not going to let you down. Like, yeah, he does have some of those lower games, but I'd be surprised if he wasn't on a couple tries in his tally already in those first 3 weeks, even against someone like.
He only had 3 games below 45 last year.
That's
so
pretty
he
huge.
He does have some lower ones, but only 3 below 45.
That's not that bad.
Yeah, and he played 22 games as well. So, I mean, it's one of those things where you probably want to target him later. Like I mentioned, those sort of middle rounds before the bye. I'm going to look there, and I'm going to hope he's cheap. He doesn't score tries to start the season. But the rising gun was actually White. So you almost nailed it, Mikey. 584k, and I tell you what, he's another forgotten man a little bit. He went up to a 60-point average, but that's all because he got 55 minutes a game. And you know what? He's the alpha prop now. I don't care what anyone says. People can say Linu, people can say Lindsay Collins, whatever. Nafur White is the alpha prop. He has taken over from Jared, and he is an absolute beast. Love him. 50 raw base. And look, you know what? Mid-50s base power, that's low for him. Now, coming through the grades, his tackle breaking ability especially, but also his offloading ability, was a lot better than this. He scored 3 tries last year in his 22 games. He could easily add an extra couple of tries to that because he's that type of guy. So I do think that last year was the first year where he's gotten those big minutes into him, and his PPM didn't really suffer from it either. I don't see him getting more minutes, but I can see him getting some of that power stat up and another couple of tries in him as well, especially with Robson near the line now. When Robson comes back, I think that he'll hit him near the line for a couple of tries this year just himself. So do see some growth in him. I could see him a 65-plus point per game player. I guess it's hard, Mikey, because at 584K, it's a bit awkward because it's not quite cheap enough at around 500. It's getting expensive into the sixes, and you just sort of say to yourself, oh, look, I may as well just go down to a Hopgood and try that out, or I may as well just pay up a little bit and try Keon Kolomatangi, which I think both are pretty fair points, really.
Yeah, I think that's what's hard. It's like the year where there are so many options, especially in the front row, and I couldn't knock anyone for starting him. But like example, if you've got I'm assuming you got Payne Haas and you've already got Trey Mooney locked in, who did really well, then it'd be hard to kind of fit him in your front row rotation. There's so many other guys I prefer in the second row if that's how you had him. So then and then all of a sudden Paseka. And even Flegler, if one of them got named, I'd probably dropped, if I had enough white, I would have dropped him down to one of them because I like the bench makeups for both those other two low mid-rangers. And all of a sudden, you've got yourself 240K to splurge elsewhere to be able to grab that Tedesco or to be able to grab that other gun. So that's just the kickers with Nath White. It's the fact that I think he's going to get better and better. And I still think he'll be able to do what he did last year.
Mm.
Look, I'll sound like a broken record, but with the Roosters this year, they're going to be improved. They're going to be better, and there's going to be a time to jump on all these guys. You're not going to have all of them, but they're going to be that team that if they start how I think they do, or they start a bit slower, they will build and they will get better, in my opinion. So they're going to be a team that constantly I'll be looking at them and looking at the time to jump before others do. And I think that's a good strategy going with for the Roosters.
Just have to tell everyone, Daniel Tupou is actually 1.6% owned. So there you go.
Holy crap.
That is really
I can't
low.
believe you went with someone like Marzahue and you didn't even think of your boy there, mate.
I feel like Marzahue worked out, though. So.
He did, but if Tupou comes out and scores 2 or 3, then you go, well, maybe I shouldn't have.
I got to take the Roosters goggles off on my SuperCoach stuff, and Margie's got 10 plus better base power, so I had to go with that. But you know what? What I just noticed is that White's actually gone up to 10.4% ownership. Wow, really surprised.
That's a pretty high ownership for him. I thought if I was going to guess, I'm going to say 5 to 6%.
Well, you know who's lower than all of them? The next rising gun, Robert Toya, 1.4%.
He's forgotten about it too. A lot of these Roosters guys have forgotten because there's so many good guys that these guys get overshadowed.
Mate, Toya could legitimately have a big improvement year. Like, he went 59 points per game, so he wasn't quite a gun last year. He could easily go to 65. And then at 572,000, I feel like he's one of the guys not being talked about enough because, in that 500s, there's not a lot of options. We've got guys like Selwyn Cobbo. Brian Tyler is an obvious one and a really good one, but certainly guys like Cobbo and some of these other guys that are pretty risky are getting thrown into a lot of teams. Robert Toya, I haven't heard one person mention him, and he could easily have 6 or 7 points of value and start the season on fire. And at 572,000, it's the right price point if you're looking for that second, third, or fourth centre wing that's not expensive, depending on your strategy and build. It could work out. I got him in draft. That's my favourite spot to get him. I got him super, super late in draft. I think the second or third last round, and I was really happy with that. Hard to start with him, obviously, but again, quite overlooked.
Yeah, he could be a big beneficiary of DCE as well. Like, he had a pretty solid base. He's young too. He's only going to get better. Like, he was a great cheapie last year. And, we saw someone like Iro was a great cheapie his first year. Then he come in and he scored a try in every game last year. Like, imagine if he went on that kind of run, that all of a sudden that value's going to, increase quite quickly if he ups a number of tries that he scores too. So, not a bad option, but it's just hard. And you go, you look at Mark and Nwang Tawazi, and then you look at, there's just so many backline plays from the Roosters, and it's just picking the right one. But he
only
definitely
7 tries in 21 games as well. So
that's what I mean. And then you had DCE on that edge now. And I don't mind him at all, but I think he'd be a hard guy to pick. He'd require a heavy set of balls to do it, just because there are so many options in the centre wing. And even now, which makes me not look at stacking a guy like this as, I said it before, the 5 cheapie centre wings, like every other year, like it's a SuperCoach in the past, it kind of takes you back to the old days where, this is the kind of dream, having this many cheapies in the centre wing. And with some of their job security improving, you wouldn't be able to grab a guy like Toya because you're running the cheaper guys to then be able to stock up in your fullbacks, halves, or your second row. So that's the story of this year, really, isn't it? Like, too many options. So he's another one you should add to that watch list for sure, because he could come out if he ups his try tally, and he's going to improve as a footballer. So
there's a lot of guys to eat at the Roosters, like you said, and we know that Toya's not going to be the top of that list. So that's an issue for him. Mids and cheapies. A few really interesting ones to talk about. Before we do, I'll just quickly mention the great partner of the NRL All-Stars podcast in One World Courier. You can go to oneworldcourier.com.au today and create a free account, cost you nothing, and sign up with them. And when you do sign up, it'll say, how did you hear about us? You put NRL All-Stars podcast, bang, they'll take care of you straight away with a cheap rate card to start with. But they are a shipping and freight organisation. You go onto their website and put in what you want to send, where you want to send it to. It will give you all the different carriers you can use from TNT, Ozpost, UPS, and everyone else, and how much each of them are going to cost. You just pick whatever one you want, and then they take care of the shipping all for you. It's all done. So it's a great service, and they're a really good company and good support of the All-Stars podcast. So if your business or the business that you work for has any freight or shipping needs, One World Courier are the people to talk to. Bit of an under-the-radar one. This guy is 1.9% owned. He's named to start at 13 for the Roosters. Victor Radley's not back till like round 6. And Blake Steep has pedigree. He's a really good young player. He's been very highly regarded. Coming through the ranks, he's compared to Boyd Cordner, seen as a future leader of the club. Only played 35 minutes a game last year, scored 40 points for those 35 minutes. And he's coming in at a little bit of an expensive price, which I think is the issue. It's a bit expensive compared to some of the other guys, but I wouldn't be surprised if he outscores the Lasardis, the Chans, the Labans, and all these sort of guys that are finding their way. I certainly think he's going to obviously outscore the buys and those sort of guys. But starting at 13, mate, we don't have a lot of data of him starting, but if you look into the middle period of last year from round 12 to round 16, there's 4 games there. And in those games, he played 53, 40, 55, and 56 minutes. 50 to 55 should be his sweet spot for minutes. He scored 93, no try in that, 52, 60, and 73. And he could easily get through a 50 raw base in those games. So it's just a small sample. He is somebody who is also going to benefit immensely, I think, from the new criteria for tackling. He will get extra tackles, probably 3 or 4 points additional. So if you look at him as on his PPM, if he's getting 50 to 55 minutes, he's a 55 to 60 guy anyway. In that small sample size, he actually averaged 70 across those 4 games, but small sample. He could easily go a 63, 64 average as a type of, best hope scenario, but his floor is going to be 50 points. 394,000, enough time for a few price rises, probably 4 price rises. He could get to 550, 600k in that period before you move him on when Radley comes back. And if there's any other injuries, he can also play on an edge as well. So I actually really like him. It's just that there's so many options, it's hard to put him in. I tried to put him in. I ended up downgrading him back to Laban because I needed that extra $95,000. And that's probably the biggest issue. But I could see him being the best young mid-ranger out of all of them for the first 5 weeks.
Kind of smells the story of Nafua White last year. Got the chance to start, stepped up, and now the same thing for Steep. I don't know if he'll get to that much, Barnesy, in that time. There's a world where Radley could come back and play on the edge and they put Nat Butcher back to the bench and he continues his starting spot. That is definitely a scenario, but it's more so that the Roosters have all these young touted guys and they've got the experienced guys too. There are a lot of mouths to feed. Like you got Spencer Leno on the bench there, and it's just like the rotations. And if he can get that minutes that you said he does, if he was to get those minutes, and I think he's underpriced for sure. And I think after teams have come out, avoiding guys like Cham, Lasardi, how I think there's a lot of potential traps because the job security is not made up. So to be honest, if you had the money just to not worry about any of those guys and grab a guy like Steve as your second rower, well, obviously if you had Laban too, have a Laban and him, I don't mind it at all, because in the odd chance where you're wrong and Steve isn't as good, you could go down to one of those guys once their job security improved. Because a lot of these cheapers, I think some of them are going to be good, but at this point in time, it's going to be hard to grab them. For me, I don't want to grab him on or watch him wait first. I guess the handy thing with Couchman already playing, I'm not really too fussed about that 6th spot. I can start a guy like Lasard Chen if I get it. Just have a stab at who I think's got the highest upside, and if that doesn't work out, they'll become Ryan Couchman if he continues to go well. But if you don't want to worry about that, I think Blake Steep fits it personally. Fits it well. I think the main thing that was just pushing me off, like I said, was the amount of mouths they have to feed there. They've got Egan Butcher on the bench, and Connor Watson is probably going to spell time at lock as well as hooker, right, Barnesy?
Yeah, we need to talk about that now because Ielu is the guy that we're going to finish on the Roosters 9 at the moment. And Watson actually impacts Steep and Yellow. And that's going to be the issue with Watson on the bench. But I see it working because I think that Watson's role, I'm pretty sure, was to play about 25 minutes at lock and maybe 10 minutes at hooker, 15 minutes at hooker. And that's where I see it. So if that's the case, you should get the 50 to 55 from Steep and you should get the 65 plus from Oielu. And I think that works. And I don't think Robson going is going to push things too much because Trent Robinson, could have put Watson at 9 like he played last year, but he went, no, I want to keep him to his role that he was going to be in and that he's trained the preseason to be, and that is to go on at 13. So I think that's positive for both Steep and Oielu. But look, I've got Oielu at the moment because he's under 250,000, and my plan is to get 100k out of him and send him across to Cheese. After that, I do think that Cheese is going to take a couple of weeks to get his match fitness and to get his full minutes complement potentially. And when you're looking at it, Robson, there's a lot of misinformation going around about Robson. Maybe he comes back early, but the information at hand isn't saying that he is going to. He was going into surgery on Feb 20, and it was a 6 to 8 week injury from Feb 20. It could be late April before he's back. And you got to factor all that in and go, well, what's the minimum? And the minimum is, a price rise after round 3 for Yellow, a price rise after round 4, and likely after round 6, although I could see Robson coming back round 6. But with that round 5 bye, I can't see them pushing for him to come back earlier, and I don't think he'll be ready anyway. So, 2 to 3 price rises, potentially a 4th if you're really lucky. That could happen. The problem with Oielu is that he might not even get to 400k, and then you're going to have to move him on. But you can let him sit there for a couple of weeks because I don't think he's going to get selected otherwise. When Robson's back, he's gone out of the side, so he won't lose money. So when you're trying to go cheap, there's going to be some risks. There's plenty of risk with Oielu, but at the same time, I think that it can work out, and you're not under huge pressure. He's not like a Ford Mikey where they get benched and they're going to play 15 or 20 minutes at the end of a bench, and you're going to start dropping cash, so you're forced to get rid of them. You can actually wait a little bit with Oielu as well.
The only kicker is if he did come back early, he could become the 18th or 19th man, and if a spot goes down, he could come in, and then that's the way he could lose the cash he makes. But I switched last minute to Reed Marnie after the 8 minutes, and I spent up, and I got Harry Grant and Reed Marnie. I'm going to stick with that. So, but if I didn't, my original plan was Harry Grant and Oielu, because I don't like the fact of starting with Brandon Smith, because now he's hampered by all this injury. Assuming he's going to come back and go straight back into that role he had. What if he gets hurt again, or what if they slowly wean him back on the bench? So I'd prefer to take a stab at Oielu. Just be prepared that maybe him to Brandon Smith might not work, and that might be fine for a lot of people to go with that. Because worst case scenario, if you had Harry Grant, there are, like, my scenario was if Hayward was any good, I could go up to a Hayward, or I could go up to a Reed Marnie. So I guess just have a contingency plan for it. But he's got an attacking style game, this Oielu. Like he's really good. Like, I've liked what I've seen from him. Like, he was great in the trials too. So there's a world where he could start pretty hot, and if you could make a quick 100k, you're not going to complain. Like, that's probably a little bit generous of me. Like, you'd probably, I think, more realistically looking at like a 40 to 65k game. Like, if you're looking at it, if he doesn't get those attacks, just because he's probably I'm banking him only getting 2 rises with that buy. And I think that's what you should do. And if you get any more than that, I think it's a bonus. So I don't think it's the worst, because having a guy like that enables you to stack your side elsewhere. So it's all what balance it gives your team.
Yeah, 100%. And the balance is important. I think that the plan B, if plan A going to Brandon Smith isn't there or doesn't work, is that you can just go to Robson. So, it might only be 100k difference to get up to a Robson when Robson returns.
It could be a 150-ish. Well, for it to be a 150, she still would need him to gain 100k. So it's a big what if, but that's also a good one too. I guess we didn't really talk about Robson, but he's definitely an option too when he comes back.
Yeah, I can't see him not getting to that 100k. I think that it's a pretty low floor to expect the 100k. And I even would say, the only thing that really is the big red flag, it isn't Robson coming back. It is the minutes. Like, we're guessing that maybe Connor Watson gets 10 to 15 at hooker. If somehow he gets 25, that really kills the yellow dead. So we need to wait and see.
With
but I'm taking the punt. Yeah,
with the
and with
amount
the
of
amount
forwards
of
they have.
forwards.
Because like that's the big what if about a lot of these guys at the Roosters. That's why a guy like Crichton's good because he's going to play the 80s. That's just what makes it hard with all of these Roosters picks. But I think everyone we spoke about today is someone you could highly consider in your side, and that's the difference with the Roosters this year compared to some of the other team previews you've done and talked about.
Well, that is the Roosters. We are done and dusted. Mikey, thank you for jumping on board again, mate. It was great to chat to you about my team for once.
Yeah, we traded a TLT podcast for this one, so it wasn't bad because they've got lots of options. So you'll see more of me as we get into these rounds anyways.
For everyone listening and watching, make sure you do subscribe on YouTube, Spotify, and iTunes. You can find us everywhere. And jump online onto the social media channels, X, Instagram, and Facebook. You can follow there. But I think we've got the Raiders and Titans left, which I'll try and endeavour to get out in the next 24 hours. But until then, enjoy tinkering with your sides after TLT yesterday. There's a lot of changes, a lot of things to consider. Can't wait to talk more footy again with everyone real soon.
You'll never know if you don't go. You'll never shine if you don't glow. Hey now, you're an all-star. Get your game on, go play. Hey now, you're a rock star. Get the show on, get paid.